So good, so good, so good.
Great gifts for mom? We've got them. And they're up to 60% off at Nordstrom Rack stores now.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Gotta show mom some love.
That is so good.
Snag amazing deals on Mother's Day gifts from Barefoot Dreams, Kate Spade New York, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and his musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. He and I are recording this week's episode on the morning of Monday, April 21st. Now, mind you, this show is supposed to post tomorrow on Tuesday, April 22nd. By the way, Drew, 55th anniversary of Earth Day. And not only do we have a lot of animation news to share, but Drew and I also have an interview that we did in the middle of last week with the creatives behind Not Just a Goof, that terrific new documentary about the Goofy movie, which began airing over on Disney Plus earlier this month. So long story short, folks, we're kind of on the clock here and under the gun, so let's get to it, shall we? And as always, before Mr. Taylor and I dive into the news, we have to acknowledge our sponsor, which is the DVC Rental Store. And if you're already planning your next trip to Disney World, you can save some serious scratch by renting DVC points through the DVC Rental Store. Imagine staying at a deluxe resort for the fraction of the cost. Total game changer. And heads up, folks, the DVC Rental Store is currently running a limited time promotion where they're now offering the lowest prices of the year. So please check them out at dvcrentalstore.com. Oh, and if you already own or are thinking of joining the Disney Vacation Club, be sure and check out the DVC Resale Market. They're the leader in the secondary market with over 70,000 satisfied members. So whether you're looking to buy or sell your DVC points, they make the process seamless. Okay, so we typically start off a fine tuning with a quick look at the domestic box office. Again, want to remind you, we are recording this the Monday after Easter, and I'll have to take a second here that, we woke up like the rest of the world to news this morning with the sad passing of Pope Francis, who's been dealing with some pretty serious health issues over the past few months, which is why, well, while this news is sad, it's not exactly unexpected or surprising, but what is surprising, Drew, is, well, how well faith-based films continue to do at the North American box office. We talked on last week's show about The King of Kings, that animated version of Charles Dickens's The Story of Our Lord, which came in number 3 domestically this past weekend, 17.3 million in ticket sales, and to date, that Angel Studios production has pulled in 45.3 million. But I think you also pointed out last week that there were a number of other faith-based films that were charting. Well, then it was 2, and now it's 3 installments of The Chosen, which, have you heard about this? This is 8 hours of that TV series that then got broken down into 3 different installments, which are played in 40 different territories worldwide, and seems to have been a smart play on 5 and 2's part. That's the production company behind The Chosen, because this 3-parter to date has sold $45 million worth of tickets. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are more coming.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I only know this because my Pilates instructor has been going, and she thought that this was the last one, and she said, I think there are more.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Well, now, I want to say here, it is probably relatively easy to sell a faith-based film in the weeks leading up to Easter, which is why I have to admit I'm kind of interested in what the box office take will be next weekend for The King of Kings and all three parts of The Chosen, Last Supper. But again, you got to give the film makers some credit. They took a chance in the North American territory and it paid off. But I apologize. This transition kind of borders on blasphemy here, so I'm going to apologize in advance, but we're now going to slide from faith-based films to the Force, because there was a lot of animation-related news coming out of this year's Star Wars celebration, which was held over in Tokyo, April 18th through the 20th. Were you keeping tabs on any of that news, Drew? Or
yeah, a little bit, although, all the news was breaking, very late in the day, and so I had already turned off my brain in terms of caring about entertainment news. And then it's like, oh, but there's more.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, on the animation side of the street, we talked on last week's show about Star Wars Tales of the Underworld, that 6-part animated anthology series going to be debuting on Disney Plus on May 4th. Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you. And of course, Tales of the Underworld is a follow-up to the earlier Star Wars anthology animated things, Tales of the Jedi, which debuted on that streaming service October 2022, and then Tales of the Empire, which debuted on Disney Plus just last year as part of their 2024 May the 4th celebration. But they are not the only Star Wars related animated series that are continuing on over on that subscription streaming service. Again, coming out of Tokyo, we learned that we're going to be getting a third installment of Star Wars Visions. That's that series of animated short films that kicked off back in September of 2021 and then had its very well-received follow-up bowing on Disney Plus 2 years later, again on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, 2023. Anyway, we get our third volume of Star Wars Vision on October 29th, but not only, we're going to get a spin-off from this series, a new animated series from Lucasfilm Animation called The Ninth Jedi, which is supposed to show up on that streaming service sometime in 2026. Also coming next year is, again, from the animation side at Lucasfilm, is Maul Shadow Lord. Brand new series for Disney Plus, supposed to illustrate how Darth Maul grew the Crimson Tide, or excuse me, the Crimson Dawn, into the massive criminal enterprise it eventually became. And I guess, Drew, I have to ask, are they going to tell us how he actually got put back together? Because didn't we see this guy cut in half in, Phantom Menace?
Oh, Jim, he's had spider legs in the cartoons. He's had all sorts of stuff. But this seems to be, it's interesting that they seem to be kind of plowing the same time period for these animated things again and again.
Yeah.
And this is the criminal organization, Jim, that appeared in your favorite Star Wars film, Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yes. In fact, we got that weird little Maul cameo at the very end there. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. They're mining this specific vein, very deeply. But again, you got to remember, when it comes to Star Wars, much in the Disney vein, there's a cradle to grave aspect to this whole thing. And on a far more lighthearted note, we also learned that we're getting a season 3 of Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures. That's going to be coming to that subscription streaming service this fall. And I don't know if you saw any of this footage coming out of the convention center in Chiba, Drew, but to underline, circle, and indent that, we're getting a third season of the show, they sent some poor, sweaty teenager out on stage dressed in a Nubs the Poobah costume.
Yes, I did. I did see Nubs larger than life in IRL in Japan.
Yeah,
Oh, Lord.
yeah, and I just have to say, I felt so bad for the performer in that outfit because that looked heavy. And by the way, speaking of heavy costumes, I want to say on a recent Disney Dish, we talked about the original Buzz Lightyear costume that Disney cast members had to wear when they went out into the theme parks around the same time that the first Star Wars film arrived in theaters, November of '95. Which, by the way, reminder, Star Wars as a franchise celebrating its launch, a 30th anniversary later this year. But anyway, that Star Wars character costume had to look like the action figure from the film, so it was made out of hard plastic and reportedly weighed a ton. And so a lot of the cast members who wound up being assigned to play Buzz in the park wound up with severe muscle strain and back issues, which is why out ahead of Toy Story 2, arriving in theaters November of '99, the costuming department at Disney revisited the Buzz Lightyear costume and did what they could to make it lighter and easier to wear. And I bring this up because just this past week, Tim Allen was talking about working on Toy Story 5, which arrives in theaters sooner than you might think, folks. June 19th, 2026. That's just 14 months away. And did you see what Allen had to say about Toy Story 5, Drew?
I did, and it actually confirms what I had heard about Toy Story 5 a couple of years ago, which is that it's a very Jessie-focused movie.
Which, by the way, is not going to make Nancy happy. I mean, she felt from like the get-go with Toy Story, she did not like Jessie. She felt very emotionally manipulated by the whole "When Somebody Loves You" song in that movie, where I'm like 3 Kleenexes in at that point. It's
right.
Oh my God, that's so sad. But yeah, I'm going to be kind of interested in see that. The other thing is that he did continue to talk about I don't know if we can really call them the villains of this movie, but the multiple Buzz Lightyears, the ones that supposedly were in the shipping container that wound up falling off of a container ship or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Stanton talked about this at D23, and I think showed concept art as well.
Yeah. And I'm just putting this out there because I know you're a Joe Dante fan, and I'm just hoping this isn't Small Soldiers Revisited. You remember that DreamWorks Universal Pictures?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I think it's a underrated gem. Small Soldiers.
Well, I mean, I get what they were going for, that again, action comedy with a satirical edge, but at the same time trying to actually launch a toy line. They were going for kind of a Gremlins thing. I don't know if they entirely succeeded, but that said, I still think one of the cooler aspects of Small Soldiers is the whole notion of reaching out to people like Ernest Borgnine, James Brown, Bruce Dern, folks who actually did films like The Dirty Dozen to voice the murderous action figures. I mean, the names, just alone, the names are worth it. Brick Bazooka, Butch Meathook, Kip Killigan, and Nick Nitro. and never mind that, as that film comes to a close, the CEO is very Elon Musk-like, don't you think?
Yeah, was that Dennis Leary was the CEO?
Yeah. So, all right, maybe I have to go back and take a look at this. But I'm just saying that I don't know if having a bunch of buzzes as well, I'm reluctant to use the term villain because Pixar films don't have villains, but the antagonists with an S, just going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So, all right. And speaking of actors talking about the animated sequels, they are now doing voice work on Hailee Steinfeld, who voiced Gwen Stacy in the Academy Award-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and its top-grossing 2023 sequel, Across the Spider-Verse. Recently talked with MTV about working on the much-anticipated follow-up to those 2 animated hits, Beyond the Spider-Verse. Anyway, we're still a ways out from the Sony Pictures animation movie arriving in theaters. Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse currently has a release date of June 4th, 2027. And, as those of us who still remember the pandemic, crucial lesson from that, plans can change. But Steinfeld, who, because she's now working on her third animated feature for Sony, feels like she's now a battle-hardened veteran of this particular and peculiar production process, advised Spider-Man fans who are chomping at the bit to see what happens in Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is understandable given the way Across the Spider-Verse ended. But this is how Hailee, what she said in her MTV interview, it's like, there's one thing I've learned with, it's that you put what you do in their hands and you're going to end up with something masterful. So you just got to go with it. You got to trust the process. I mean, we're well into working on this thing, and it won't arrive in theaters for 2 years yet, but the wait will be worth it. So, all right, here's hoping that Mrs. Steinfeld is right. That said, though, long before Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse arrives in theaters in June of 2027, we are getting a new animated feature from DreamWorks, Forgotten Island, which will be directed by Joel Crawford and Juanel Ricardo, and that's supposed to arrive in theaters September 25th, 2026. And I think, Drew, we've talked about this weekend on earlier Fine Tunings, how Wild Robot arrived in theaters on September 27th of last year, 2024, and they've got Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, arriving in theaters this year on September 26th, and now Forgotten Island, which DreamWorks is describing as a broad party comedy that has its roots in Philippine mythology. That's slated to arrive in theaters on September 25th of next year, 2026. So folks at DreamWorks clearly like this weekend on the domestic schedule. They feel like they found a sweet spot to drop animated features in. What have you heard about Forgotten Island?
I mean, I've heard that it is like a kind of, hangover-ish comedy, but that it does have these kind of fantastical elements. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out, and I think Joel is one of the, brightest stars at DreamWorks right now, so I just cannot wait to see what he's concocting when being able to deliver a feature that is original, because as you know, he took over Croods 2, he took over Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Yeah, and again, worth noting that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was nominated deservedly for an Academy Award. That is a wonderful film, and just on that alone, I'm intrigued to see what he can do with the original property. So again, don't forget that name, folks. Forgotten Island next year, September. Let's see what other animation news we got this week. 100th episode of Big City Greens debuts on the Disney Channel Saturday, May 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. So congratulations to the production team for reaching that milestone. There's a brand new Bill Plimpton short out there to enjoy. It's called Duckville, and it debuted. Well, I don't know about debuted. It was screened this past weekend at the Florida Film Festival in Maitland, Florida. Also, if you're a Bill Plimpton fan, I want to remind you that Guard Dog, his Oscar-nominated short, is now free to watch over on YouTube. Also, we have talked on this podcast in the last few weeks about the 40th anniversary of Studio Ghibli. That's how we got that IMAX release of a restored version of Princess Mononoke. I think that was late March, early April. Want to make you aware that in celebration of that anniversary, G-Kids and Fathom Events are partnering to bring 8 of Studio Ghibli's films back to theaters this year. They're starting with Kiki's Delivery Service in May, and then they're ending with the Academy Award-winning The Boy and the Heron in November. And you can learn more about this Studio Ghibli Fest over at gkids.com, and tickets are on sale right now. And folks, there's lots of other animation-related news that we could talk about on today's show, but Drew Taylor is a busy man, and more to the point, we've got this terrific interview with the filmmakers who made not just the Goof to share with you guys, which we're really anxious to get to. So, all right, how about we wrap the news segment and get to the feature? But before we do that, here's a quick ad. And we're back. Folks, you are in for a treat. Drew and I are here tonight with the folks behind Not Just a Goof, that terrific new documentary that premiered on Disney Plus earlier this month on April 7th. This 88-minute long film takes an in-depth look at how a Goofy movie, which celebrating its 30th anniversary of its theatrical release this year, more to the point, talks about the surprisingly large pop culture impact that this Kevin Lima film has had. And so with Mr. Taylor and I tonight, we have director Eric Kimelton, Eric's co-director Christopher Ninness, and Not Just a Goof producer Scott Seibold. Welcome to Fine Tooning, guys. I have to say, I have been following this project for years. Bill Farmer actually told me that there was a documentary in the works about a Goofy movie in the early 2020s. He and I were guest speakers at Dayton Disneyland, and he was really excited that this was coming down the pike. And I think I told Scott that I have been a fan of this film since the Goofy movie first debuted in theaters right from the get-go. In fact, while we were pre-gaming this interview, I was telling Scott about how I lived in Orlando at the time when a Goofy movie came out, and I went to go see it on opening day, and so I drove over to my local theater, which was the AMC Pleasure Island, and they still had the banner up from the Florida premiere of a Goofy movie, which had been held like 2 days earlier. So, missed Bill by that much. So, anyway. Okay, so we're going to throw this over to Drew to get the interview started.
Well, I have one question and one question only, which is how close did you get to Katzenberg actually being in the documentary? Because I love animated Goofy versus Katzenberg, but I would love to know how close that actually came to happening.
So, here's what we can say. There were many opportunities for us to reach out to Jeffrey Katzenberg, and we considered it a lot, and we weighed those options about having him in the film and not having him in the film. And what we kind of came to the conclusion of every time was, this is a story about the ragtag creative team. It felt to us like having such a big presence like Jeffrey Katzenberg in the film might detract and take away from Kevin and Greg and Steve Moore and Brian Pimentel, who are really telling their story of being first-time filmmakers in the Disney kind of machine. So we opted to not include him. We never reached out to him, but we don't even know if he's seen the movie yet. I hope he has, because we think of him as a hero and a champion of a Goofy movie, and he definitely has that personality that people know, and like he's a character within the 90s Disney universe of filmmaking, but we think like a Goofy movie wouldn't exist without him, and he's a huge part of that.
I like the idea that somebody had lined up Diet Cokes and was cracking them open for him as he was coming in. Isn't the story, Jim, that at the end of the feature animation unit in Florida, when he left, they dumped a kind of giant barrel of a Diet Coke syrup on him?
Actually, what was weird, I was I was on the other side of the fishbowl the day he came in. I mean, it totally by coincidence. And what they actually did is they presented him with, I guess they had gone into the Brown Derby and gotten one of the barrels of the Diet Coke syrup and presented it to him as a going away present. The effect of now you'll have all the Diet Coke that you want. But that said, guys, I mean, I have to say, if Katzenberg, when he eventually does see this, I think you guys do an amazingly even-handed portrayal of him. I mean, he's the irritant in the story, but again, if you go over the history of every Disney feature animation movie during his reign at the company, he was the irritant. In fact, you tell that wonderful story in the middle of the film about Jeffrey, the 2-week pause where they decide whether or not, do we really want Goofy's voice for the whole movie? And And then Bill re-records a lot of the dialogue. And ironically enough, that's what makes the movie better, because the film winds up with a much more emotionally grounded performance of Goofy by Bill.
Yeah. People we were interviewing all said, like, at the core of it, Jeffrey was really pushing for the emotion from the get-go, and like bringing on, other voice actors, or having Bill Farmer doing it in his own voice, or Steve Martin, was to try to make it more human, more like connect to more of the human aspect of it. And hearing Kevin say that he was worried that it was all just going to be gags and just comical, and he wanted people to be able to connect to this thing that had to last for an hour and a half instead of like a 5-minute short.
Now, another question, though. I mean, again, face it, you guys are just getting the project started. In fact, you have that wonderful footage of visiting Kevin at home, and then he goes out in the garage and brings out that Tupperware full of tapes. I mean, what was it like? You know, you're in the early days of, well, maybe this is a movie, maybe we can do something, and he drops that in your lap.
I think we went like pale white, like we turned into ghosts when he showed us the tapes. We had no idea. We didn't know about the tapes until after we shot his interview. And so up until that point, we were thinking, this is probably going to have to be a lot of animation. Maybe there's some photos we can find. Eric had said that, you're never going to believe this, Kevin has a demo tape of Eye to Eye. We thought that was like the extent of what he had. So when he showed us the box of tapes, our brains exploded with just this curiosity of like, oh my God, what's on there? Like, what's in that box? Also, can I just like go through all the boxes in your basement? Yeah. But yeah, it was mind blowing. You read like the tape label and it says Tevin Campbell, Eye to Eye in booth. And you're like, I have to know what's on this tape.
Well, that's the thing, that it could have been like a bunch of junk, but it is so essential not only to the story of the documentary, but I think Jim and I will both say is to the story of animation history, because you know the French studio is so poorly documented. I mean, there is literally nothing. So to have these amazing shots of the animators working and them getting kicked out of their workspace and all this stuff is just so incredible. I mean, what was your reaction coming across all of this stuff?
To further what Chris is saying, like you just find these like nuggets of mind-blowing stuff. Like there's a scene that we had to cut, or like a take that we had to cut, that was actually in our credits. We had to cut it for licensing reason, but Bill Farmer is in the booth singing High Hopes, the entire song in one take. He just does it in one take. It's unbelievable. But yeah, there's so many recording sessions of like Bill and Jason and the singing of the songs. And you're just like, to see that process. And sometimes it was like mundane and going through the technical stuff, but also, you know, working through the creative on that sort of stuff. It was very interesting to watch.
There's one tape that there's a lot of footage that is not usable for a documentary. Just, you know, being totally forthcoming about that. It's like there's one tape that's like 3 or 4 hours long. It's on a tripod and it's a French animator background meeting. And it's 4 hours and they're discussing backgrounds and half of it's in French. You're like, okay, this does not like lend itself that well to the story we're telling. But I love that it exists, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the side-by-side of the choreography of Eye to Eye and the actual animation, I mean, that must have been like, oh my God, we have to build an entire sequence around this.
Yeah, because that whole sequence, like they had cut all of that together. So it was like a full edit already put together of like what they wanted. So like we knew the intent of the creative team. It wasn't just like, oh, just a bunch of shots and we had to put that together, and we were just like plussing it up with, you know, the side by sides and going in the booth to show the singing and all that stuff. But
we cared so much about that sequence that we were working on that sequence up until the week we delivered it to Disney, like making small adjustments to it. We kept coming back. We're like, this isn't quite right. How do we fix this? Because we knew that it's like the showstopper number of our film. It's the moment that kind of just gives it a whole new energy, I think.
That was the first thing that Chris had showed me when he was really like getting into the weeds on some of those tapes. I think that was like the first or second thing that he had cut, because it's just like jumping into the deep end of the pool. That was the first thing he showed me, that he had cut, and I immediately reacted, was like, this is amazing. It's going to be great.
Now, a quick question, though, because I talk with Becky Klein at the archive, and she always talks about the fact that you get in a situation like this, you get tapes, it's like, oh, this is so cool. But then it's like, oh, crap, there's nothing to actually play these tapes on. What was that like, finding the tech to actually watch these tapes from the 90s, or for that matter, obviously you had to do some restoration or that sort of thing. So it's, you could show it on the screen. What was involved there?
Well, we had to buy a VHS, a special kind of VHS player that would allow us to minimize the tracking, but also allow us to digitize it. By the way, VHS players are wildly expensive on eBay. We had to buy it used, obviously. It was a few $100s, more than I think I should have had to spend on a VHS. But the High 8 tapes, Kevin had the actual camera that he shot that footage with. And it was right next to the box of tapes. And he said, well, why don't you take this as well? I mean, so that's kind of mind-blowing. You're holding the actual camera that shot this footage in 30 years earlier. And then basically in the I would say last fall, we started working with Chase Wingfield, who wanted to work with us on up-resing all the footage and restoring it, and that took it to a whole nother level. I mean, his restoration work is just so beautiful, and but that was a challenge of its own as well.
Yeah, so much so, like we saw the film for years, like most of it, without that, and then we did that at the end, and we started seeing things that we hadn't seen before, like, oh, that person is in the background, or oh, that artwork is on the wall. Like you could make it out.
How cool. Another thing I really admire about not just a Goof is, well, face it, the story team's in Burbank. The animators are in Australia and in Paris. At the same time, it's a really complex time at the company. In the middle of it, Jeffrey's forced out. And you keep all of these balls in the air, that there's real clarity to the story. You don't need to be a student of Disney corporate history to understand what happened here. And that's a real tribute to you guys.
Oh, thank you. I mean, honestly, I think the three of us were such big fans of Don Hahn's Waking Sleeping Beauty that we really wanted to make something that felt like a spiritual sequel to that. When we started the project, Don Hahn wasn't involved at all, but we're so familiar. Eric and Scott and I are so familiar with the 90s era, and that time we're such big students of the studio at that time. And we really wanted to make a documentary that maybe felt like it's a companion piece to Waking Sleeping Beauty. So there are some details that we leave. Like we obviously touch on Katzenberg leaving the studio, but if you watch Waking Sleeping Beauty, you'll get all of the details of that, right? And that felt like something, we don't need to dive into, because that's not the story we're telling. Things like that were very much at the forefront of our thought process in the editorial.
But I do appreciate that the kind of stickiness of a sort of production feature production pipeline married to the TV, world, and leaving that in and letting people sort of see that kind of friction. I mean, there's a great moment where Howard Green is interviewing one of the filmmakers, and they say like, "Oh, no, we shouldn't talk about that because the TV team is a little touchy about us even being here." And I was wondering, how important was that to you guys to kind of illustrate that? And did you get any pushback once the documentary went from being unofficial to a Disney Plus production?
It's kind of amazing that when we got it to Disney Plus, when they were first viewing it and till it came out, We received 0 creative notes. 0. We only got like technical or legal things, and those weren't that many either. But we definitely wanted to like have that sort of thing in there. So because it really showed like what this new group of filmmakers were having to go through in the middle of trying to bring this project to life, and they were all feature animation people going and working in the TV animation studio and pipeline. And I'm sure, to the TV animation people, they were wondering like, hey, why are the big dogs, if you will, coming in and like messing with what we have going on? There's rivalry there, I think.
Was there ever a sense that, because you do offer this kind of sliding doors moment of if Goofy movie had succeeded to the degree that they wanted to, that there would be an entire different kind of like strain of movies being produced in a similar fashion? Did you ever get the sense of like what would have been next in that kind of world?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't think we ever. I mean, everything changed once Katzenberg was gone. I think we actually say it in the documentary, or Kevin says it. He's like, why would feature animation want them to succeed? I mean,
yeah,
they kind of in a way needed this B team kind of thing to be swept to the side, because feature animation, like The Lion King or Pocahontas, or this big kind of epic tales, they cost what they cost, and they need to cost that much because it's a lot of labor and a lot of work, and it takes 4+ years to do, and it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Got
Jim's going to now say, I know what they were going to do. Yeah. And here are the 5.
No, not at all. In fact, for me, what I am intrigued by the historic parallel between, face it, if we jump back to late 30s, early 40s, the company had made Pinocchio and Fantasia, and each of those had lost $1 million. And there was suddenly this notion of, okay, let's do something smaller, a contemporary story. And they do Dumbo. And you jump ahead now to the 90s, and they split the animation unit in 2. And one group goes off and does Pocahontas, the other one goes off to do The Lion King. But there's also this hunger from home entertainment to the effect of we need more product. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, Goofy movie started as a direct-to-video and then just came to Katzenberg's attention, or was it always planned for theatrical?
My understanding is that it was in the very beginning that it was going to be like kind of like a direct-to-video thing that then got like in the middle of production or early on in production, it got moved to a theatrical release. And I think part of that is probably they saw the heart in it, and it was more than just let's get these these famous characters in a film and sell it to the kids. It had more depth, like a traditional theatrical release.
Got it.
Because I think Eric, you're right. When it was the Goof Troop movie, when it was like proper Goof Troop spinoff, I believe it was a straight to video kind of idea. But then Katzenberg came to them with, a simpler kind of take on it, father-son story. And once they had found that, everything kind of changed. Yeah.
Okay, folks. Again, love this so far, but we're going to talk about how, in particular, how you guys brought in the pop culture aspect of the impact of a Goofy movie in not just the Goof. But first, this. And we're back. Before we get to the pop culture aspect of the success of a Goofy movie after theatrical, I just have to ask, whose idea was it to do the Blue Line animation? Because it's wonderful. I mean, I love the dog people versions of the production team and that sort of thing. But when did that idea enter the project?
Early on, like after our interviews, we knew that we wanted to do animation. And we reached out to Chris, did like a blast on like Facebook or something, and we got hooked up with a company in Colombia called Ventura Animation Studios. And the founder of that company, Juan, we started talking to him about the film. We showed him an early cut, and he's the one that actually had the idea of putting them in the Goofy verse and making them dogs instead of humans. And he did some early sketches and like designs of like the characters for our film, and we were like immediately, absolutely yes, like that is totally our film, it fits right in. And then the Blue Line sketches, we felt like it would speak more to the making of, and so there's also a budgetary side because we're like independent filmmakers, but even if we did have the budget, we would go with the blue pencil because of that reason.
I was just going to add that they actually sent us the lineup of all the characters on the day we happened to be in San Francisco, the Bay Area, showing a very early cut of the documentary to Kevin and his wife Brenda, and there was only placeholders in the film. It said, to be animated, and you'd hear the stories and interviews underneath it. And we got the lineup, and Brenda was taking a look at it, and Brenda says, "Oh, Jeffrey needs to be way shorter," because he was the same height as everybody else in the animation in the lineup. And we said, "Oh, okay, sure." And she goes, No, you don't understand. He has to be way shorter. And I was like, oh, okay. And she ran off and got this book, and it's a book full of all of her friends' like sketches and animations from the studio in the 90s where they would do caricatures of Jeffrey Katzenberg. And they drew him as this short kind of caricature character. And she said, this is what you need to do. Like, he should only peek over the frame, just a little bit over the frame. And we said, okay, yeah, sure. Well, we could do that. And I remember the next day we're leaving and she's giving me a hug and she goes, I'm not kidding. You've got to make Jeffrey that short. And that's okay, we're going to do it. So we called Juan. And that was the biggest change we made to his lineup, honestly. And he totally understood. And so that's a Brenda Chapman note that we're so thankful for.
The only thing that's bad is that you didn't get to animate Jim Cummings' mullet from the period. That thing was glorious. I swear.
It was okay. So I again, now, have you guys taken this thing out on the festival circuit at all, or is it just gone straight to Disney Plus? What's the plan here? Because I could see this thing easily winning some awards. It's a great movie.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We did do some test screenings, like with early cuts and everything, just to see how everything was playing and to make sure that what we felt was, connecting with us was connecting with an audience.
Some of those screenings were parallel with conversations we were having with Disney Plus. So you're sort of in a situation where you're pushing the gas and the brake at the same time, and wanting to get the film out, wanting to more people to see it, and then also wanting to do what we'd always dreamed of, which was to put this film on Disney Plus. And so I think we're all pretty happy right now with the Disney Plus release, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Okay. Now, toward that end, Drew and I are huge supporters of physical media, and I know I'm asking for the moon here, but any chance that this is going to get a Blu-ray or DVD further on down the line? Or?
We
may have been already having discussions with people to make that a reality.
We would love
you know where to send the first two pressings. That's all I'm gonna say. This is reality.
Yeah, there was a conversation that we were having recently about additional features that we could put on the disc, which was very fun to think about. More interviews, things that didn't make the cut, or other possibilities. So I really hope it happens. We're just waiting to hear back from a phone call. Just that's that simple. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I have to tell, the only bad thing I've heard about not just the Goof is actually from international animation fans who are kind of frustrated that if for some reason it's not showing up on their version of Disney Plus. Do you guys have any information about that?
We are working to make that available. We're actively working to make that available around the world.
Hopefully, we'll have. Our goal is to have it become available to everyone as soon as possible. So we would have loved for it to come out just worldwide on Disney Plus. That was our like pie in the sky dream. But Disney decided that they just wanted to license it for the US only. I think, which is totally, I mean, when you're an independent film company and you're trying to get your film released, that's of course also very much a dream come true. So, but now we're just trying to figure out what's the next, move to make it available for everyone. So, but we are working on that. We had a phone call today about that.
So cool.
How does it feel to be part of this whole, anniversary celebration? I was in the parks a couple of weeks ago, and there's all sorts of crap sitting around with Goofy movie stuff on it, and a really weird hat that they're selling with a kind of tuft of hair sticking out of the top, and all these things. But you guys are a real part of this kind of celebration of the anniversary, and I was wondering how that feels being fans who made a movie about this movie you loved that is now part of that movie's celebration. It's pretty amazing.
Well, if you would have told 10-year-old Eric that on, a Goofy movie's 30th anniversary that he'd be at the Disney lot for a Goofy movie 30th anniversary celebration, it was way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Chris and I were able to go with Kevin Lima, the director. And then that evening, getting to celebrate the documentary coming out and a Goofy movie's 30th anniversary with Goofy, Bill Farmer. We all got together that evening and celebrated the 30th anniversary and the doc coming out. It was like a surreal, like, bucket list moment for 10-year-old Eric and little Chris.
Yeah, I've loved this movie for so long, and it has such an important. It was such an important piece of my childhood, and it's still an important part of my life. And it's strange to love something so much, and then pieces of it start to love you back, and you're like you're hanging out with them in a room, and Bill Farmer's just talking to you and making voices to your baby, and it's a very strange life moment, but it's so just like incredibly warm. It makes me feel just so grateful and warm. It's like a hug. It's the best. Getting to contribute to a Goofy movie in any way is amazing.
Oh, well, and the other aspect of this film I love is like the last 10 or 15 minutes where you do that wonderful pivot into what happened in the pandemic, where suddenly people are home creating stuff, talking about how important this movie is to them, and that wonderful montage where all of the stuff that was out there in social media. And I just have to ask, how hard was it to because again, there's only so much room in a film, but to pick those moments to show what was happening out there in pop culture.
I mean, if we thought that the amount of footage Kevin gave us was a lot, the amount of footage that is out there of people all over the globe talking about a Goofy movie, a power line, the perfect cast, like what have you, that is endless. Like there's like on our hard drive just hundreds of hours of unused clips from YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. That's how much love there is for this film. That sequence of the movie actually took all three of us to figure out how to piece together, because it just was so overwhelming.
Yeah, the eye to eye dance was trending a lot during the pandemic on TikTok specifically. and I have a folder with hundreds of those dances, and there's a montage of like a dozen of them that lasts like 2 seconds in the documentary. So you're like really going into the weeds to like find who the fans are, find the creators, different backgrounds, ethnicities, and the fandom just really encompasses a wide range and diversity of people that love this movie.
And Disney put out a little thing on social with like Domi Shi and somebody from Imagineering and all, you know, people within the company talking about their love of the movie, which I thought was really fun as well.
Yeah, we saw that. That was very cool.
Well, this, speaking of very cool, again, Not Just a Goof is a wonderful documentary, which is on Disney Plus, debuted this month and continuing on. And if you're an animation fan and haven't yet signed up for the subscription streaming service, you are missing out on something really cool. So go check it out now. And thanks, Eric, Christopher, and Scott for coming on Fine Tooning. And
what's the next documentary? Shipwrecked on Treasure Planet? Is that the next one? What's the next? What do we got?
Oh dear.
We're open to ideas. If you guys,
okay, I think that's a good one.
Okay,
yeah, maybe it's Treasure Planet. Who knows?
Yeah.
You guys seriously have to talk with Mr. Taylor, because you're still working on your 90s Disney book, right?
Slowly,
okay,
yes,
all right.
yes.
Because it's got to have a big chunk on a Goofy movie.
Well, this documentary took 5 years, so hopefully, if it's that long, there's hope at the end of the tunnel.
I love that.
Okay. Well, on that note, guys, thank you so much for making the time to talk tonight. And seriously, you did a great job with this movie. Drew and I so enjoyed it, and it's nice that Disney gave it a home on its subscription streaming service. And like I said, I hear from these international animation fans who are like, when do we get it? So hopefully that gets resolved soon.
Yes.
Soon.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Wasn't that great? Thanks again to Eric Kimelton, Christopher Ninness, and Scott Seibold for coming on today's edition of Fine Tooning. Just a reminder that Not Just a Goof is available for viewing over on Disney Plus right now. And it's a terrific documentary about the making of Kevin Lima's A Goofy Movie. And speaking of terrific things, if you're not already listening to Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast with Drew does with his equally talented co-host Charles Hood, then you are missing out on some truly entertaining showbiz-related behind-the-scenes stories, not to mention timely stories, because, of course, Mission Impossible 8 will be opening in theaters in little more than a month's time. Mark your calendar, folks. The Final Reckoning arrives in a multiplex near you on May 23rd. And what are we doing shows about on Fine Tuning right now, Drew?
Well, we are currently waiting to get closer to the Final Reckoning, but we will have tons of Final Reckoning content coming your way. So just sit tight and wait for your mission. But yeah, I mean, we did these, documentary style episodes, kind of oral histories of all the earlier entries. So definitely check those out. They are a ton of fun. Yeah.
But again, you stitched together stuff from dozens of podcasts to do that, right?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough, but I think it turned out well.
Absolutely.
So, give it a whirl when you're walking the dog. Yeah.
Okay. And if you manage to go through those and you're still killing time waiting for Mission Impossible 8 to arrive in theaters, well, we do have a few other podcasts here you could listen to. We have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We have the Epic Universal podcast, which I do with Eric Hersey, who produces a lot of the shows here at Jim Hill Media. We also have I Want That Too, which is our Disney merch podcast, which I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Let's see what else. Oh, we just put up a brand new episode of Looking at Lucasfilm with Brian Gahn. That covers WonderCon and Seasons of the Force at Disneyland Park, which, Drew, you got to experience a little bit of, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. And let's see what else. Oh, also want to remind you of Manufacturing the Magic, the theme park history podcast we host here at Jim Hill Media. That's done by Noah and Shelley Valladolid, and they literally just sent me 2 brand new episodes this weekend, so we're getting that series up out of the ground. Also wanted to direct your attention to Disney Unpacked, our Patreon show that Lennon and I do with Jim Schul, a veteran Imagineer, and we recently did a show about Universal Studios Great Britain, which was actually the project that preceded Universal Studios UK, the new theme park that just got announced. Also, later this month, we'll be posting a brand new Disney Unpacked that takes a look at how the characters from Monsters, Inc., that film franchise, have been used in the Disney parks. And also, as we head out the door here, Drew and I would like to issue a special thanks to David Gray for his timely turnaround of this material, and B, just being able to stitch the 2 halves of this show together. And as running for the curtain here, folks, if you could do Drew and I a favor, head over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, well, not just this show, Fine Tooning, but also Light the Fuse. And as we're out the door here, Drew, can you tell the nice folks where to find you on social media?
Absolutely. You can find me at X mostly and Instagram at Drew Tailored, like a tailored shirt. And yeah. That's it. What about you, Jim? Where can people find you?
I'm still on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. Likewise, Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook as Jim Hill Media News. Final note here, folks. We've been talking about Animade, the art of animation, the auction that Sotheby's is doing with the help of Asifa Hollywood. This is that fundraiser for over 70 families that were impacted by the wildfires out in Southern California earlier this year. The actual Animade, the Art of Animation auction begins tomorrow, Wednesday, April 23rd, and runs for a full week through April 30th. Just want to make you aware, folks, and do what you can to help out there. Get in there and bid, please. And on behalf of Mr. Taylor, thank you for listening to this week's Fine Tuning, and we will be back soon.